Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and in this video we're breaking down Alice in Borderland Season 3. One of my favourite shows on Netflix is now back with a bang, and it ends by setting up some major things across the world. I was actually surprised how similar it was to the latest season of Squid Game, and we've got babies being brought into the game, stuff moving to California, and a main character who sacrifices himself. Well, to some degree anyway. It's yet another fantastic season filled with tension and games that pushes people to their limits. Now though it loosely adapts the sequel manga, Alice in Borderland Retry, it does do its own thing. I kinda want to discuss that first and then discuss the series as a whole and then my theories on where things are gonna go. Anyway, Retry saw Arisu returning to the games after marrying Usagi. After being told she was giving birth, he got caught up in a tsunami and then returned to the borderland. He ended up playing just one game, which was called Earth Invasion. Arisu had to survive and clear the game and basically get back to his family. Eventually he did that, leading him to arrive just in time to see Usagi giving birth. Now the show takes that idea of Arisu returning to the games with a pregnant Usagi and merges the last two chapters of the original manga. This season we learn why the games exist and what the world is. This gives a neat little end to Arisu's story and also a massive cameo in Ken Watanabe, who I had to double take on because wasn't expecting him at all. Where we end though is with a tease of the biggest games yet. Going to America, we join two people in a cafe discussing watching the Heavy Spoilers Show. They talk about just how funny it is and hitting the thumbs up and so on and so forth. There's no Kate Blanchett, but we do see a mysterious waitress named Alice. Alice! Oh, the fuck is Alice? Yes, that's right. Alice in Borderlands LA. Woo woo! So that's where we close things out at, but there's obviously lots and lots of other things to discuss. We'll break down that wild cliffhanger in just a bit, but firstly, I want to discuss what the game world is. Okay, so after the final game, Arisu decides to stay behind and let his fellow survivors leave. This includes his wife Usagi and their unborn child. The world outside crumbles, and we then meet Banda again. All of this has been a ruse or a game by the former player to get Arisu to stay in the game world. We met Banda all the way back in Season 2 and learned that he killed 4 women and was sentenced to death. He arrived in the Borderlands after this and cleared the solitary confinement game with Yaba. At the end, both he and Yaba decided to stay and become citizens. However, it appears he became bored with the players and wanted Arisu to come back. Arisu was one of, if not the best players to ever play the games. Banda knew he would not willingly return and become a citizen, so he had to force his hand. Banda then made a deal with Ryuji to set things in place that would lead to his return. He promised that if he could bring Usagi to him, then he would show him the Borderlands and also the Land of Death. Ryuji's experiments led to the death of a student, and since then he's been obsessed with the afterlife. Now Banda's reasoning for this was that if Usagi dies in the games, Arisu will have no reason to return to the land of the living. But, as we'll discuss later, he really misunderstood life and Arisu as a whole. In the end, Banda is killed as he uses the games as his own personal playground. Actually reminded me heavily of Amanda Young in the Saw franchise. That's not what they're about though, and they have a deeper spiritual purpose. Season 2 basically told us the truth of the world, with the answers getting clarified even further here. It turns out that the survivors of the games were actually at ground zero for a meteorite strike in Shibuya. In the short time between life and death, they played the games in order to decide their fate. The Joker offered them a second chance at life, but they had to prove themselves in the Borderlands. If they won, they got to return, but if they died, they just passed to the other side. Now, Borderland being a purgatory is a theory that's floated about since Season 1. Season 2 pretty much confirmed it was the case, and this kind of builds on that and shows it's possible to reach there with a near-death experience, in some technical ways. This is something we said ministered early on, and it clarifies a lot of the questions around Season 2. Just as a side tangent as well, I'm guessing the technology matches the tech of the time period. So back in the olden days, it would have been more medieval, and yeah, if they gave us a samurai Borderlands, I think that would be absolutely incredible. Instead of Borderlands America, which am I excited? No, kill me. Either way, after leaving the final game, Arisu's buddies are washed away by a giant flood. The entire city crumbles around them, and it's during this Arisu meets the man in black. Donning a black cloak, typically death has appeared this way in fiction, but the figure isn't as simple as that. He is played by none other than legend, that is Ken Watanabe, and you might recognize him from Batman Begins, Inception, The Last Samurai, Godzilla, or Detective Pikachu. And he also kills it here as well. Now, he further clarifies a lot of the things, including the fact that the amount of players in a game and stuff, that all depends on how many people were hurt in a disaster. They all then get chances to play, and this is a big thing to remember for the possible Season 4, as we have the biggest games yet coming. However, it is possible to visit the Borderlands by taking a special liquid that's used on Arisu and Usagi, similar to Alice drinking the potions in the original book. This marks a big difference from the manga, where Arisu was hurt by a typhoon at a shrine. The show did at least have him appear at one though during his first game, so they did kind of give a nod to that. In the end, Arisu's offered one last game, which kind of ties back to the first episode, as there we had a card game. Here, if he picks the Joker card, the man in black will choose his future, and if he picks any other card, then the future is his. Cards have of course played a major part in the series, and Season 1 ended with the reveal that the players needed to acquire the face cards to win the next part of the games. After beating the Queen of Hearts in the finale of Season 2, the games were finally over. Everyone who survived then returned to the real world, and we were left with a tease of the Joker card. This sent us off into lots of theories on our last video, especially because a dark, quote-unquote Joker figure featured somewhat in the manga. However, as it turns out, the Joker isn't really a person or entity. The man in black explains how the cards in the deck add up to 365 with one Joker, and 366 with both of them. It's just a card that kind of fills the gaps between and is necessary for the way that human time works. The man in black is heavily expanded upon here in the show compared to the manga, as he just appeared shortly after the Red Queen's death and then they returned to the real world. He is essentially just like Charon in the Greek myth, which I always mispronounce, but yeah, he's the boatman who transports the dead into the afterlife. That's basically what he's doing here, and the character of course has allusions to the Grim Reaper due to his black dress, particularly the betrayal in the Seventh Seal. There a knight played chess with a personification of death, and that wasn't too dissimilar to what's happening here. So they're clearly using the Seventh Seal for a basis, which also inspired how death appears in Bill and Ted. He also played games, and yeah, since the Seventh Seal, there has been this theory that one could play a game with death and win their life back. Either way, the game goes down, and it turns out that both cards were indeed Jokers, which is a wild bit of bad luck. However, he is given some sympathy by the Steward of Purgatory. Arisu can either accept death in the watery vortex or return to the land of the living. As always though, it comes with a catch. If he returns, he has no idea if his wife and unborn child will be there. Throughout the show, he's been selfless and even risked death to give others a future, even if that meant never watching his child grow up. He inspired others to be selfless though, and not just try and live, but to make life worth living. The man in black seems to think that dying in the vortex is the best option though, as you have no more pain or suffering. It's quick and you don't think about anything anymore. He's nihilistic, but Arisu rightly points out the contradiction. The man is granted eternal life so long as he's a steward of this world. He doesn't want to die, but he pushes others towards death. Arisu then says that while there's no suffering and pain after death, there's also no happiness. Yes, life is painful, but with that comes the opposite. You can be happy, experience pure joy, and Arisu's about to raise a child, which will be hard, but also very, very rewarding. Out of the death and horrors he's experienced so far will come a new life and brand new beginnings. So Arisu chooses life, but he suddenly hears Usagi. She's about to fall into the vortex, which is where things get very, very Matrix Reloaded. There, Neo is given the option of giving in and resetting the Matrix or trying to save his soulmate. Refusing this binary choice, he opts to save Trinity and then crash the Matrix. Arisu chooses to save Usagi and then return to the land of the living, showing how life can be worth living and we can all choose our own fate. His future was somewhat out of his hands though, as he lost the game and it was down to the man in black to decide. He gave him the choice as a consolation prize, but it wasn't really free will at all. However, by choosing the secret third option, he broke out of this cycle and did something that even surprised the guy who had apparently seen it all. Ryuji was also one of the people who helped save Usagi, which ended his arc. Banner told him to kill her, and in return he'd get shown everything he's dreamed of. He had a sort of survivor's guilt similar to what Arisu had. Instead of becoming a counselor, he threw himself into his work, and this was to make his students' death worthwhile. The only way to get to that knowledge was to kill a pregnant woman, but he made a promise to Arisu to help Usagi return to the land of the living, and he did that in the end. Rei also has an anime, and the couple's choosing baby names. At work, Arisu's interviewing former players and asking them what their meaning of life and reason for living is. So he's now focused on life instead of focusing on death. I felt like it was a very happy ending, and we see lots of characters from the other seasons in his therapy sessions, including Shishaya, which I butchered all the pronunciation in this video, but it was nice seeing them. Either way, with the final game over, everyone can continue their life. One problem though, the Man in Black's predicted that the Borderlands would be very, very busy in the near future. He sensed that something's coming that will lead a lot of people to the games. The world is changing, with natural disasters happening more and more frequently. Every continent's having increasingly stronger earthquakes, and experts think that global environmental changes are causing them, and we then cut to Los Angeles. Now, the San Andreas fault line, of course, runs through California. Scientists predict that a big one will hit, which is an earthquake that will possibly cause the state to collapse into the sea. Now, the image on the news shows earthquakes hitting all the major tectonic plates around the world. There's the Pacific and North American plates that meet, and from them, the San Andreas fault line's probably the most famous one, mainly due to how catastrophic that would be if the big one hits, and for, of course, its usage in the movie Superman. So if these earthquakes are the precursor to the fault exploding and rupturing, then we might see the biggest games ever. I also can't help but compare this to Squid Game. After those games ended, we saw the frontman go to LA and saw there was an American version happening. I do wonder if Netflix is just forcing these things to happen, or if the plan was to always take the games worldwide. Like, I can't even believe we're getting Alice in Borderland LA, but here we are. Either way, after the news, we see two guys talking about the big game. That obviously, is a play on the games in the show, and they request a window seat, which means a bad time if the earthquake hits at this moment. It's where we get the thumbnail shot that every YouTuber dreams of, as one of the waitresses is named Alice, and we zoom in on her badge. Bro, we got Alice in Borderland before GTA 6. But what does it mean? Well, Arisu was actually the Alice for the 3 seasons. This is because the Japanese pronunciation of Alice is Arisu. As well as that, Usagi means rabbit. So Alice had been chasing the white rabbit the whole time, which is basically what the title implies. Now, what this name badge tells me is that the American show will have the main character Alice, who gets caught up in one of these earthquakes. They keep her head completely out of the shot, and thus they can cast anyone in the role. But I do think that things will erupt here, with this cafe probably being ground zero. This waitress Alice is likely who we'll follow next, and we'll then head out from here. I kind of feel like Arisu's story is now finished, and that he'll finally go off and have a happy ending with his family. So with that in mind, season 4 would likely feature an Alice in an American version of the show. We might even see the ultimate game with people from around the world competing due to the impending apocalypse. Who knows what's going to happen? Aliens could come down, that was a theory in season 1. There might be a meteor hit the planet that causes even bigger destruction, and everyone in the world could be in a big Alice in Borderlands. Still though, if I had a nickel for every time that a Netflix drama game shows ended with an American spin-off, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Now, if you have a nickel, or like $29 I think it is, then why not check out our merch store right below the video. There we have lots of our TV and movie themed shirts, including ones for Alien Earth, It, Predator, James Bond, whatever you like, might be a shirt there. We also run stackable deals where if you buy more, you get more of a discount, and it all helps videos like this get made. So huge thank you to everyone who's picked one up. Anyway, what did I think of the season? Well, I think it was a much more somber and serious entry that was on a much smaller scale than what we'd seen thus far. However, we got major growth from Arisu, and the weighty themes that ran through the season were gripping and featured some very smart writing. The games themselves were a lot of fun, but we never really got to know anyone outside of the core group of survivors, which I did feel like I preferred the other seasons a bit. That said, each one of them had some great backstories, and I grew attached to them despite the core story being Arisu looking for Usagi. Rei was also a fantastic new addition that reminded me of the clever Shishaya, which I've butchered again and I'm sorry. Now, even if there's no season 4, this had the perfect ending for Arisu, and though I thought it was short, it was a very sweet tale. I do kind of wonder if the 6 episodes was basically just used as a basis for them to launch the American show, and this could have ended up being a cynical cash grab. but I think what we got delivered, and I am happy to have another season of the show. Anyway, I'd of course love to hear your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did you like it? Did you not? Do we in the middle? Comment below and let me know, and please drop a like on the video as well. If you want to check us out on Instagram and keep up to date with what we're doing, then make sure you also check us out at Heavy Spoilers. Did you know as well that members of the channel also get early access to videos, and if you click the join button you get at least one breakdown a week before anyone else. Costs just 99 cents a month, and hopefully we've set it at a price where it's not a lot to you, but if a lot of you do it, it will mean a lot to us. Now if you want something else to watch, we've got a breakdown on screen right now. Gonna set that as best for you, chosen by YouTube, so mate, YouTube's telling you what to watch next, and you're gonna bloody love it. With that out of the way though, thanks for sitting through this video. I've been your host Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.